With the 2024 NHL entry draft being less than a week away, I thought it would be fun to put a little twist on the NHL over or under series. Yesterday, I asked you guys on the community tab to name a prospect and a draft position, and now in today's video, we are going to look through some of your guys' comments, and I'm going to try and predict if the prospects will be drafted earlier or later in the draft than the draft position that you guys left in the comment. Before we get started, I do want to mention that I do not claim to be a scout or a draft expert by any means. I do feel like I have a pretty good understanding of the prospects who are expected to be taken in the lottery and in the first round of the draft, and I'm pretty familiar with a lot of their games, but outside of players that are expected to go in the first and maybe early second round, my knowledge of players that are expected to be taken later in the draft is pretty limited, so keep that in mind. This video is just for fun, and as always, I want to know what you guys are thinking, so feel free to play along down below in the comments. Leave your picks for each comment that we're going to go through in this video. And lastly, if this is your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all year round, be sure to hit that subscribe button. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and start off the video with the first comment from Hockey Compilation, who says Cole Eiserman over under 10th overall pick. A year ago, he was projected to be the second overall pick, but has fallen off many rankings. This is a tough one. I think Cole Eiserman ends up going somewhere between 8th to 12th overall. I could see a scenario where he goes exactly 10th overall. Like you mentioned, he's a prospect who at one point looked like he may end up being a top 3 pick in this draft, but throughout the year, he's really been up and down on a lot of people's rankings. Cole Eiserman very well may be the best natural goal scorer and have the best shot in the entire draft class, but aside from that, his game does seem to be a little bit one-dimensional. He's kind of a raw prospect. I think there's maybe 5 or 6 forwards in this draft class that have a much more well-rounded offensive game that I think could be selected ahead of Cole Eiserman. I'm also expecting quite a few defensemen to go in the top 10, so I'm going to say Cole Eiserman goes later than pick number 10, but not by much, maybe by a pick or two. I'm guessing he goes maybe 11th or 12th overall. Moving along now to the next comment. This one comes from Nick, who says Ivan Demidov over or under number 5 overall. Personally, I don't think he falls past 3, but just because he's Russian, I think he may fall. For me, Ivan Demidov is definitely the biggest wild card heading into the 2024 NHL draft. It is a similar situation to Matvei Michkov last year in the sense that I think a lot of people view Ivan Demidov just based off of pure talent as the second best player in the class. With that being said, there's a lot of other factors here to consider when it comes to Ivan Demidov, and there seems to be some concerns that teams have which could lead to him falling out of the top 5. Ivan Demidov absolutely dominated the MHL this past season, 2 points per game. However, there's been questions about the quality of competition when it comes to the MHL, and due to Russia being isolated from international tournaments, we haven't seen Ivan Demidov in any best-on-best tournaments going head-to-head with some of the other top prospects heading into this draft. He's also signed through next season with SKA in the KHL, and although it sounds like Ivan Demidov plans on coming over to North America following next season, that could always change. His brother plays on SKA, which could lead to him maybe wanting to play there for a couple more years. The KHL is also not a developmental league, especially when it comes to the top teams in the league. SKA being one of those top teams, playing time comes into question a lot. We saw it with Matvei Michkov towards the beginning of this past season. He was a healthy scratch for SKA, and when he got into the lineup, he was playing very limited minutes before ultimately he was transferred to another team where he really started to pop off. Even with all those concerns though, I still think Demidov is going to go really early in this draft. If the Hawks don't end up taking him second overall, that's a really big debate now. Are they going to go with Levshinov or Demidov? But even if the Hawks decide to go with someone like Levshinov, I still think Demidov probably goes 3rd, 4th, or 5th, so I'm going to say he goes earlier than 5th overall. The other day, Demidov actually measured in at 6 feet tall and weighed in at over 190 pounds, so if there's any teams that had concerns about his size, I think those concerns should probably be thrown out the window. It sounds like Ivan Demidov went through a little bit of a growth spurt and is bigger than anticipated. I'm of the belief, especially at the top of the NHL draft, with the first 5 picks, you should always take best player available, and in my opinion, there are not 5 prospects in this draft that are better than Ivan Demidov, so I think he goes in the top 5 somewhere. If not, and Demidov ends up sliding a bit and a team's able to grab him outside the top 5, I think that is a draft pick that'll age very well for whatever team ends up taking him. This next comment comes from Awesome Zach, who says Aaron Kiviharju over under 25th pick. couple years back, he was looked at as a potential first overall pick, but he has really tailed off since, but I think he will still be a first rounder. He's definitely an interesting prospect. Like you said, there was a time he was viewed as somebody who would be in the conversation for the first overall draft pick in 2024. Kiviharju is a prospect that people were talking about when he was like 14 or 15 years old. I think the big reason why he's fallen so much in the draft rankings is because he just really hasn't grown a lot. He's an undersized defenseman, and a lot of times undersized defensemen, despite being being incredibly talented tend to fall in the draft. Look at Lane Hudson in 2022. There's a ton of potential there. I definitely think he's worth taking a chance on with a later first round pick, especially for those teams that have multiple first rounders. Teams like Ottawa, who have the 25th overall pick, Montreal 26th, Calgary 28th, Anaheim 31st, Philly 32nd. I think it would make a lot of sense for one of those teams to take a chance on Aaron Kiviharju. That being said, though, I'm going to say he goes later than 25th. I think he'll go with one of those last 7 picks of the first round to a team like maybe Calgary, Anaheim, or Philly. This next comment comes from Doggo, who says Sam Dickinson over under 5th overall. I'm definitely going with later than 5th overall. I feel like Sam Dickinson is probably going to go somewhere between 8 to 15. In my opinion, there's at least 3 or 4 defensemen that I feel like are going to be selected before Sam Dickinson, at least 3 for sure, those guys being Levshinov, Buyum, and Siliev, and then I think you can put Sam Dickinson in that next tier with somebody like Zane Parekh, so I would be pretty surprised to see Sam Dickinson go in the top 5, so I'm definitely going to say he goes later. Moving on now to the next comment. This one comes from Nick, who says Anton Siliev over or under top 4, 6'7", at 17, 18 years old, and skates like butter. Someone is going to fall in love thinking he'll be the next Chara. It's me, I'm in love. And also thank you for the kind words. The sunburn isn't as bad today. I actually planned on making this video yesterday, but there was just no way I was going to be able to sit in this chair for a couple hours. This is a tough one for me. Siliev is a guy that I think a lot of people could see going as high as 3rd overall, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see him go in the range of 6th to 8th either. I feel like when it comes to Siliev, there is a lack of offensive upside there, but I mean, defensively, the dude is going to be a complete monster. He's a freak of nature. Like you said, skates really well for his size, and I mean, let's be honest, NHL GMs are obsessed with size. The KHL is a league where it's hard to earn minutes as a young player, so Siliev being 17 years old for the majority of this season, playing big minutes like he did in that league is very impressive. I'm really going back and forth in my head on this one. I wouldn't be surprised to see a team like Anaheim take him 3rd overall. I did say I think there's a lack of offensive upside there, but for a team like Anaheim, who already has the likes of Zellweger and Minchikov, maybe Siliev would be a good fit for them. I also did say earlier in the video, though, that I think especially in the top 5, you should always take best player available, so I'm gonna say he goes later than 5th overall and stick to my guns there. Moving on now to the next comment. This one comes from Meh661, who says Sven Solberg over under 20th, the most physical defender, played amazing in the World Championship. He's a Cromwell type player. He is climbing the draft table as well. Like you said, one of the most physical defenders in the entire draft class, 6'1", over 200 pounds, loves to lay the body, plays a very smart and well-rounded defensive game. He's a prospect where I don't think it's going to be too long before we see him in the NHL, maybe a year or two. Is there a ton of offensive upside there? I don't really think so. He's definitely a long shot to ever become a number 1 defenseman on an NHL team, but I feel like he's a pretty safe bet to be a really solid second pairing shutdown guy at the NHL level. I'm going to say he goes earlier than pick number 20, probably somewhere in that 15 to 20 range. The next comment we have comes from Hubert, who says Tej Ginla over under 8.5. Calgary has the 9th pick. I'm sure they would like to pick him, but I can see other teams being interested to get a young sniper who has one of the best players of his era as a father. I am really hoping he's available at number 9 for the Calgary Flames. It would just be the perfect scenario, but like you said, I definitely think there's going to be some teams drafting ahead of Calgary that are going to be interested in Ginla. He's a dominant offensive player who has pretty good size on the wing, a great shot. He's the kind of player that I think is going to have a lot of 20-plus goal seasons at the NHL level. For my prediction, I'm going to say he goes later than 8th because I really want him to go 9th overall to the Calgary Flames, so I'm going to try to speak it into existence here. Continuing on now, the next comment we have comes from Steven, who says Berkeley Katon over or under 12th overall. Personally, just like you, I want him to drop to 15th overall so Detroit can pick him, but I think he'll end up going top 10. I'm with you. I think he ends up going top 10 as well, so I'm definitely going to say he goes earlier than 12th overall. Cam Robinson, who is director of film scouting for Elite Prospects, he is my go-to for keeping up with prospects throughout the season. An absolute must-follow on Twitter. He has Berkeley Katon ranked number 7, and he said if he were 6'2" or had another level of speed, he'd be the clear number 2 prospect in this draft class. So him saying that really just goes to show how insanely talented Berkeley Katon is. His highlight reel from the WHL this past season is absolutely absurd. I really feel like NHL GMs often overthink it when it comes to size. We saw it with someone like Zach Benson. That pick's already looking great for Buffalo. Same with Cole Caulfield. If Berkeley Katon does end up falling outside of the top 10, I think a couple of years from now, there's going to be quite a few teams looking back at this draft class regretting the fact that they did not use a top 10 draft pick on him. So I'm definitely saying he goes earlier than pick number 12. Moving on now to the next comment. This one comes from Ben, who says over under 3.5 trades involving first round picks. I'm definitely taking the under here. I feel like heading into the draft every year, there's always so much talk about teams that could be trading up or trading down or trading their first round draft pick for a player, and we usually don't see a ton of that. Maybe we see one or two, but I'd be surprised if we see 4 or more, so I'm definitely taking the under here. I hope I'm wrong though, because I love trades. The next comment we have comes from Caps Coverage, who says over under 4 defensemen in the top 10 picks. This is kind of a tough one. I actually don't think I'm going to say over or under. I feel like it's going to be exactly 4. I think it ends up being Levshinov, Buyum, Celiev, and then either one of Zane Parekh or Sam Dickinson. Continuing on now, the next comment we have comes from Mikey Schwartz, who says Beckett Seneca over under 11.5 draft position. I'm going to say he goes later, but maybe just by a pick or two. I feel like he probably still ends up being a top 15 pick. Pretty good size on the wing, really well-rounded offensive skill set, but I'd definitely say I like guys like Eiserman, Iginla, Katon, and even someone like Hellenius more than Seneca. And now finally finishing up this episode of NHL Over or Under with the last comment from Natic9557, who says Caden Lindstrom over or under 4th overall. I think he's going to be right there in that range. I could see him being taken exactly 4th overall. If he's there at number 5 for Montreal, I can't see them passing on him. His combination of size, speed, and skill at the center position is very hard to come by. The dude is going to be a dominant power forward. I could see a scenario where some teams may be hesitant to take him in the top 5 because of his back injury. Back injuries are no joke. He had a herniated disc. Now, Caden Lindstrom has came out and said that he's almost 100% healed, and he says he didn't think any NHL teams had any worries about it. He doesn't think it's much of a big deal, so that's good to hear. In my opinion, Caden Lindstrom is a can't-miss prospect, so I'm going to say he ends up going higher than 4th overall, so a top 3 pick. So that is going to wrap up this NHL draft edition of the Over or Under series. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I always want to hear your guys' thoughts, so I hope you all played along down below in the comments, left your picks for all of the comments we covered in this video. If you made it all this way to the end of the video and you ended up enjoying yourself, please remember to leave it a like. It's the best way to let me know that you enjoyed, and it does help out the videos a ton. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all again soon.